Drum sponsorships. They're like a badge of honor, right? Like a medal. Or being made. I'm an Acme artist. And for many of my heroes and friends in the drum community, the announcement of a sponsorship is like a graduation announcement. I've arrived. And these folks have good reason to feel good. They've been recognized by the brands we all used to wear on our t-shirt in high school when other kids were wearing Yeezys or Superdry. And one comment I get more often than you'd think on YouTube, given that I'm a middling drummer and small-time YouTuber, is, how come you're not sponsored? When is somebody finally going to recognize 80/20 and give him a sponsorship? And it's flattering to read, sincerely, guys. And just to be real with you guys, I have courted sponsorships. Just not from the people you'd assume. Because I've also got about a decade of experience in online business because of my whole build it yourself instead of waiting for other people to choose you thing. And that's given me a window into a different side of sponsorship. One I'll explain to you in this video. The counterintuitive economics of drum sponsorship and why I'm not sponsored ahead. Stay tuned. Okay, today I'm going to talk to you about something called affiliate marketing. I promise this will not be dry. No, don't click away. Come on! Just hear me out. Hey, this might be interesting. And I promise I'll tie it back to those drumhead, cymbal, and stick manufacturers we all know and love. But just thought experiment, okay? Imagine you're a new upstart cymbal company. In fact, 80/20 cymbals. How's that sound? And let's assume you hired a master cymbal maker away from Zildjian, who's got the real ancient metallurgy formula, but he didn't actually share it with his bosses at Zildjian. So your cymbals are legit premium quality. Let's even say artisanal. Great, so how do you sell them? How do people even hear about them? Well, you have to get them on the shelves of music stores. And those stores aren't going to give you shelf space if they're not selling, let alone share risk with you by paying the wholesale price just to stock them. Unless you already have brand awareness and they're pretty sure those cymbals will sell. Ditto a booth at NAMM, which costs a pretty penny. You need to get awareness up, and there's a very simple way to do that. Pay for advertising. Run ads. Hire a production crew, hire somebody to play those cymbals on camera, and start running video ads on YouTube. Maybe even run some ads particularly targeted at music store owners on Facebook. And guess what? That costs money. 25 grand just to shoot the commercial, 50 to 100 grand in ad spend to get some market share, and hopefully you break even by actually selling cymbals. And you're going to need brand ambassadors. Like, what if you want Mark Giuliano to switch from Zildjian, or Aaron Spears or Larnell Lewis to switch from Zildjian? And in the age of the internet, there's a model for that. Affiliate marketing. You find an influencer and either pay that person a flat rate for shouting out your project, or if he or she's particularly savvy, a flat rate plus a percentage of the proceeds. But given that you're an upstart cymbal company, you can't afford Mark, Aaron, or Larnell. Plus, they're staying at Zildjian and Sabian for reasons we'll discuss later. So you look for some up-and-comers. People unaffiliated or not getting a great deal from their current sponsor. Some folks with 100K plus Instagram followers, and some viral drum covers. But you still have to pay them low five figures plus a hefty percentage at the back end, right? After all, they're giving up the freedom to play whatever drums or cymbals they want, and probably sponsorships with larger manufacturers to take a flyer on you. And if you're smart, you're probably enlisting them to help you produce branded content for your cymbal. They spent 20 years learning to Instachop and 5 years building up 500,000 followers. That has value, right? They're way more valuable to you than you are to them at this point. As such, you'd expect every self-made drum and cymbal gear manufacturer to go after the biggest self-made Instachoppers they could find and offer them super lucrative deals that were really heavy on back end if they were short on cash flow for upfront money, as well as free flights to the factories and some dinners out. And I know some boutique gear companies who did it right. Build a long-term relationship with an up-and-coming artist based on a great deal, loyalty, superior quality, and all-around good vibes. When you get outside of music, most other sponsorship relationships function as I've described. When Sprite or Pepsi sponsor actors or comedians, or shoe companies sponsor athletes, there's an exchange commensurate with the size of the megaphone of the spokesperson. And it's of roughly the order of magnitude in remuneration that we'd expect. You hear about shoe money all the time. So why don't we hear anything about cymbal money? Because vast proportions of the drum gear economy do not function that way. I know some artists sponsored by major gear manufacturers, and they're not paying their mortgage, let alone sending their kids to college, on what they're earning from those sponsorships. I'm acquainted with many of the Insta choppers sponsored by the aforementioned companies, and there seems to be some value exchange. The companies are indeed flying them out to the cymbal factory to pick out their cymbals, supplying them with equipment worth 4 to 5 figures, and as we'll discuss later, giving them a platform for larger exposure. Many of these guys are very happy with their sponsors. And I even know some of the reps for some of the major companies, and they're generally good folks who care about their artists. In these relationships, there's value exchange that goes beyond money. If you're an artist for a major brand, you're getting exposure. And not just by having your name on the masthead of their YouTube channel, but subtler things, like participating in their clinics, which introduces you to a whole generation of up-and-coming artists who are going to remember when they saw you at their festival. For some artists, they'll supply you with equipment wherever you travel. When David Garibaldi does a clinic at a guitar store in Wisconsin, there's a Yamaha rep there to supply an out-of-the-box kit, so David doesn't have to bring any of his own gear. That's worth more than free Pepsi. And, of course, manufacturers like Zildjian and Vic Firth pioneered a live format, where plenty of young, new artists, and even niche artists like jazz drummers, are introduced to a wider audience. Then, let's talk about it. There's the prestige factor. There's a non-malignant version of the prestige thing. At best, a sponsorship from a major manufacturer sponsors a little bit the way an Ivy League degree does. It's an insignia that you've been picked. You're part of a tightly curated group of artists. So when you appear at Zildjian Live, the audience isn't just seeing you, they're seeing the fact that you've been picked by Zildjian. And that's valuable for everything from negotiating your clinic rate to negotiating the rate you get paid for creating courses for large online drum channels like Not the 80/20 Drummer. When you say you're a Zildjian artist, you inherit the prestige of all the artists who came before you. These guys were good enough to work with Vinny, and now I'm good enough to work with them. At best, the prestige factor even evens the scales monetarily between what you would make from a drumhead, cymbal, or stick manufacturer who is paying you purely in money, and what you'd eventually make by monetizing that prestige in the real world. And if drummers were making purely rational decisions about sponsorship, we'd expect those decisions to rest mostly on those eventual earnings. But now it's time to take the red pill and break the matrix. What if there was a malignant version of sponsor prestige? What if this ancient Cro-Magnon part of our brain that craves inclusion and recognition, the same part of our brain that causes us to build up those followings in the first place, could be hijacked by cynical players? If that were true, you'd expect to see two things. Drummers going for sponsorship deals that made zero financial sense, just to feel and say that they were sponsored, and companies exploiting those drummers. Does this exist? First, my personal anecdote. I'm a middling artist with limited reach, so I would not expect Zildjian or Zildjian to be approaching me. Heck, I wouldn't even expect many of the smaller companies to mess with me. But some have. One was a drum company around 3 years ago, whose name I've luckily forgotten. Congratulations, they said, we'd like to offer you a sponsorship. Okay, so I had a look at their drums, which looked perfectly nice. So, what would I get for signing a contract that required me to play their drums in public and work their name into otherwise organic sentences in public? 20% off of one drum kit. When I looked at their Insta account, and their other sponsored drummers were all guys I'd never heard of, most of whom were not great players when I watched their videos, I understood what was going on. The company had gambled they could not only entice fledgling Instagrammers to give them reach and exposure for free, they figured they'd make 80% of the retail price of the drums back in the process. If the drummers were making a purely rational decision, they'd think, this sponsor has fewer Instagram followers than I have, and hence doesn't really give me a bigger platform. They're not putting on any clinics, they're not doing an Acme Day that's hosted by Aaron Spears or Emma Lovato, and I gain zero panache when I'm associated with their name, because they haven't had Dennis Chambers or Weckel in their portfolio. And indeed, all the other artists they're sponsoring appear to be beginners. So I'm going to need free drums, 20% of the gross proceeds of any sales I drive through my affiliate link in the first 2 years, and an option to bounce after 1 year if I don't like the way the numbers look. Nope, these guys are not only willing to shill for the company for free, they were willing to pay 80% of the retail price of the drums for the privilege. That's how powerful that reptilian brain that craves inclusion and validation is. But maybe I'm the only one this has actually happened to. And most gear companies offer artist deals commensurate with the boost in exposure they're actually able to give them. To find out if I was a one-off or if this is a pattern, I approached the good subscribers of my channel. In fact, I did an extremely unscientific poll, and it appears 17% of my subscribers have been approached with a shady sponsorship deal, which was really just a discount on some gear which allowed them to say they were sponsored. In fact, here are some of the stories. I signed on with a cymbal company who offered 40% off MAP. I assume that's manufacturer's approved price. But you couldn't buy directly from them, and the only retailer in my city was already selling for less than that. That was kind of a bummer. Yeah, this stick company said they were interested, and it turned out to just be a 20% discount on the sticks, LOL. One guy even said this: smaller companies use fake endorsements as a way to sell direct to the public when they can't get stores to stock their products. So remember our upstart cymbal company who wanted some free advertising? Our original idea was they'd probably have to pay a pretty penny to get artists with any worthwhile degree of exposure to endorse them. Then we wondered if the magnetic pull of being sponsored was so strong that some companies could not only get that advertisement for free, they could find drummers who would pay them for the privilege. But now we have a new hypothesis. I'd even call it a conspiracy theory. It's not even about the free advertising. They're offering sponsorships to anyone who buys their stuff. The drummers who fall for it aren't even underpaid brand ambassadors. They're customers. In fact, it all reminds me of something. Remember Herbalife? The company where people thought they were buying in on the ground floor of a business and they're going to be selling these overpriced herbal supplements to end users? And it turned out they were the end users? I gotta find a new head exploding meme. If I keep dropping science on this channel. Good one, Nate. Just kidding. Please don't leave. So back to the central question of this video. Why am I not sponsored? There's a quote oft attributed to Groucho Marx that I think sums it up. I wouldn't want to be a part of any club that would have me as a member. Part of being effective while being low status is recognizing that you're low status. Because I understand a tiny bit about business and economics, I know when something's too good to be true. A gear company I've never heard of wants to sponsor me and I have to pay for my own drums. It's probably not because of my huge reach on Instagram. So like Groucho, the deals my limited status would attract, I generally have no interest in. And those with the reach and platform to benefit me, understandably have no interest in my tiny sliver of internet viewership. As such, I'll continue to enjoy the freedom to play whatever gear I want, and to be completely candid in public about my opinions on all of it. When it comes to drum gear, that is. For other stuff, it's open season. Kings County Distillery, get at me. I'll endorse you for a couple bottles. Waterloo Sparkling, I'm shouting you out on half of my Instagram posts anyway, and you're not even sending me any free Waterloo. So I might have to switch to Ugly. In all seriousness, folks, if you're amongst the small group of drummers who cares more about getting better than they do about sponsorship, because they know that getting better is a good way to get sponsored, you might be interested in studying with me. And if that's the case, I recommend my courses: the solo course, the practice course, and the granddaddy of them all, the coaching course. All of which are like 3 to 6 months of studying with me for around the price of a single lesson. But I only open them up a few times a year, and I only offer them to people on my mailing list. Ergo, how to get on Nate's mailing list. There is a link below this video player. If you click that link and enter your email address in on the next page, you'll not only get on my mailing list, but I will send you a bribe. 3 free videos, which I assert will make your playing better in the next 3 weeks than it's gotten in the last 6 months. I know once you peep those 3 videos, you'll trust me for all your drum educational needs. Or not. Either way, it's cool. Enjoy them. Dudes, it's been real. Had a lot of fun recording this one. And speaking of plugs I don't get paid for, I want to shout out the YouTuber whose tracks I used as the background of this lesson. It's called Homage Beats. He's on YouTube. Check him out. Give him a sub. And then click the link below the player. Get on my mailing list. All right, dudes. Check you. Check, check. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. You better check yourself before you wreck yourself. Here's the problem with jiu-jitsu. People who have no business feeling like they can handle themselves, they're walking down the street thinking they can handle themselves.